Hi everyone, welcome back to Job 1 for All. So in this video, we are going to talk about bidirectional relationship, and we are going to use the let's use player and team example. So at the player and team example, we were saying that a player can have one team, and this is unidirectional. So we don't know from the team's point of view, from the team's object, what are the players that are part of this team, because it's unidirectional. Now we are going to change. We are saying player will have one team, and a team can have many players. So let's change the team class to add players to it. So since we have many players, this means that player will be an array. Okay, so we can now do the same thing as we did in the previous one. We can create a constructor that's overloaded with name and players, and we can also add the print method. So public void print, and again we know for sure that we will always have name because the constructors both have name, so we do not need any no checks here. This.name, but players is not mandatory, so we need to do if players equals null, fail fast, and just return. But if it is not, then I would like you to players, press Alt Enter, iterate over player. Now salt player dot get name. Cool. So with this, and of course adding getters and setters to player, we have the entire team ready to get many players. So we don't need to do any changes in the player side because the team is already here. Now we were just taking care of the relationship on the other side. Since we are creating a new test, let's also do a new test class. Player test 03. Okay, so usually we start with objects that have fewer relationships inside because there are fewer dependencies, but in this case both of them, they will need each other, so it doesn't matter where we start. So we can create here player first, and let's call this player Pelé, the Brazilian soccer player, and then team, new team, and this is Brazil's national team. Okay, so with both players and teams, we can start working in the relationship. So let me show you first. When we add here player.setTeam, and we can say, hey, now player will have the team that we are having a reference here. I cannot know for sure that when I assign the player to the team, because I'm assigning the team to the player, but when I assign the player to the team, just the way we are doing here, there's no way for us to know for sure that the objects are the same. So if we are working with a database, it would have like a relationship integrity. The database would check that for you. But in this case, yeah, we are just in a like getting started mode, so there will be no validations in that case. Okay, so we have a player. If we add here just one small print, player dot print, Ctrl Shift F10. Okay, so we have the player here and the team. Now let's focus on the team side now. So the team will need an array of players. So I will do the same, but I will, instead of adding under set team, I will just create here, because the first 3 lines I'm going to have all the reference variables being created. So here, player and an array of players equals, since it's just one object, I will create here player. Okay, so now I have here all the objects, and I'm setting the player, the team to the player. Now I will create here team.setPlayers, this reference variable. Okay, so I will copy this line right here. Ctrl Shift F10. And we have now both. So the one from the player's side and the one from the team's side. Now let's create another player. Let's just press Ctrl D and player 2, and we have Cafu. And then we just need to add this to the array. Now if we execute again, as you can see, we have the team Brazil and 2 players, and we are just printing 1 player because we didn't print another one. But even if I do print another one, player2.print, this is what I was talking about. There is no guarantee right now that we will have the team in the players. So this should throw an exception. So if you are adding the player to that team right here, you also need to add the team to the player. So the correct way of doing things here would be player2.set team. So to make sure that we are in the same page, let's try to draw what's happening here. So let's start with this tiny part. First, we have 2 objects. One, it's representing the player, so we have Pelé, and the second one is representing the other player, Cafu. So both players, now add them here, they have a reference variable. So this one is player, and the other one is player2. So these are reference variables. And we also have another object here that's being used to represent the team. So we have team, and we have here Brazil. So basically these lines right here is what those diagrams are representing. Now we have a reference variable, that's players, with an array pointing to these 2 objects. So now we have here players, but players, it's a reference to an array. So we have here, not this one, but we have an array of 2 positions, and this player is having a reference to them, and position 1 is having a reference to this object right here, and position 2 is having a reference to this object right here. Okay, so now that we have all of them, we come here and say, hey, player.setTeam and player2.setTeam. So I do have here instance variable called team. So this thing right here is having a reference. So the first one is having a reference here to Brazil, and we also have here another team because they are the object from the same class, and we are having a reference to this one right here. So as you can see, things are starting to get complicated. And then we say that the team.setPlayers will have a reference to this one. So basically we have here another one that is a reference variable. So these are the objects, and here we have players that is having a reference to this array. There you go. So now we have everything that's happening in this, let's say 7 lines of code being represented by this amount of errors. But that's why I say you should be able to draw what you are doing, because that means you understand what is happening. And when you understand what is happening, it's easier for you to just start getting faster and faster, because at some point you don't need to draw this anymore. It's just something that will come into your mind and you are not going to even think about it. But until you can draw, it means that you didn't fully got the grasp of the concept. So I think that's enough information for one video. So see you in the next one. Bye.